So you land up at IIM Ahmedabad, and how were the 2 years there? And
It was very tough. I really struggled in the first 6 months. There's some number of Fs you can get. I got one F. And I remember a senior, I think the academic secretary or someone, they had got this letter of people who had. So he came and reached out to me and said, what's happening?
so did you then finally get your FMCG break ever in
No.
an internship or
No,
a job?
no, they all rejected me. I couldn't even make Asian Paints. I was like in tears actually. At the heart of it, you have to acquire students at a cheap enough price and recover money from them through the fees and help them get jobs. However you dress it up finally comes down to this. ISB is also doing this. Bennett is also doing this. Ashoka is also doing this. Two big spaces in EdTech are as follows. One is jobs. Anything which gets you jobs. Upskilling is part of it. Two is TestPrep.
If you feel that right now you have to work really hard to build your resume and prepare for interviews, that happens even at 40 as well.
Yeah. I would say my writing is far more important than my IIM degree. I'll put it this way. There are 5 partners. Each of us does 2 to 3 investments. On average about 10 to 12 maybe. Okay. That's all we need to do. We need to do like 100 of 10,000 is 1%. We need to do 0.01%.
Sajith would want to be known for many things beyond IMA, but I think it's one of those brands that stick with you for the rest of your life. Now, I don't know whether you feel great about it or you would like to discard it, because I meet a lot of people from the Indian Silicon Valley who want to not let their B school brands be known a lot these days, because it's less cool, to depend on that. But guys, I know Sajith now for about 5 years, vicariously following him on the internet. Met him a couple of times, unsuccessfully pitched as well. That's part of, I think, every entrepreneur's journey. The kind of content that Sajith has given to the entire ecosystem over the last 5 to 7 years, I think is very, very insightful. I think there are a lot of terminologies that probably, Sajith and his team at Blume have now coined with, I think, India 1, India 2, India 3. I think the entire comparison between startups in Bharat and startups that serve the top 1%, and I think there are a lot of very, very interesting, cool things that Blume came up with, and I think a lot of those were authored or at least marshaled by Sajith. If you've been following his blog, also the product market fit podcast that he runs. But I think if you are interested even remotely in the world of startups, even EdTech, I think as Sir was talking about earlier, or the SaaS space, or generally the evolution of Indian media, the Indian consumer, I think Sajith is a great person to talk to. He's, by the way, not an engineer. Has an economics background. He did his economics in Goa. And then he went to IIM Ahmedabad, spent about 2 decades in the media industry, and then he became a venture capitalist. So without wasting any more time, can I request Sajith to be on stage? And guys, a big round of applause for Sajith. It's very hard to get him. It's taken us, I think, 3 Konversations Cafes to finally get him to agree to come. So, Sajith, I have a lot of bazooka questions that I wanted to ask you, but I think I will ease into that. The first question is, how did you land up at IMA?
I'm 48 years old, so I'm ancient in this room. I've probably taken up the average age of the room by 50%. So I grew up in an era where internet didn't exist, right? And my dad at the time used to work in a bank, kind of a government bank, Canara Bank. And at the time, I didn't have an interest in engineering. And typically what happened is this awareness that DU is there or Bombay Xavier's is there. We didn't know all of that. So typically, if you were not an engineer, in fact, I got to know of IIT only in 11th and 12th, that there is something called IIT. right? So it was an era of information asymmetry. And so typically your parents said, engineering nahi karna hai, MBBS nahi karna hai, so come with us wherever we are going. It was a very different era. So my dad got a transfer to Goa when I was 17. We were in Hyderabad then. If I was in Hyderabad, I'd have gone to one of the colleges there. In Goa, he said, you join the local college. This was a very different Goa. It was not the Goa that when you go from Delhi or Bombay to Goa, right? So Goa of interiors, not on the beach. This is a Goa in the 90s. A good comparison would be like studying in Mizoram or Nagaland today, right? That's the standard. So it's a very different era. And the standards were not very high. It was, I mean, the people are friendly, but they're not academically interested. So that was the context. Yeah.
But were you academically interested?
Yeah. I was, I mean, I used to read a lot, and I used to kind of take a deep interest in the subject of economics, trying to read books. Yeah, to that extent, I would say yes, I was academically interested. Yeah.
But why did you choose economics, or was it, or it just happened to you?
Yeah, good question. So I actually wanted to do psychology. Strange, but my parents said like it's really strange. Why do you want to do psychology? You won't get any jobs, etc. So actually took psychology in the first year and then moved out to do economics in the second year. That's the truth. But I evolved. College, my identity changed. My goals changed. So kind of that was a transition. Yeah.
Again, who introduced IIM to you? If you didn't know about IIT, IIM's
Yeah.
CAT, how did you know about
Yeah. We used to get this newspaper from Bombay. It used to come, Times of India, and that used to come by evening 3 o'clock. And I used to have this ritual by like I would come back from college by around 12:31, do a little bit of studying till 3:34, and it was a big ritual for me to walk about 3 kilometers buy the newspaper, which used to come by 4 o'clock then. 4:30, have a chai there and kind of come back. So I think the Times of India and the newspaper, the Bombay paper coming, and I kind of got to know Economic Times also used to come, and I used to actually pick it up. My father could, was allowed to get Economic Times. So reading Economic Times and Times of India 92 to 95 actually transformed me a lot. Like, that's where the information asymmetry changed. I saw IIMs being talked about. So by then you knew. And the Times of India used to have the cat, announcement. Yeah.
Did you know that if you went to an IIM, what career you would have?
I kind of knew that BA economics was a dead end. So I knew that it was very unlikely that I would get like a great job. Some of that realization had dawned in. Some of the economic students went to Gokhale Institute. There was a tradition of people going to Gokhale. I could have probably, if CAT hadn't worked out, I'd have gone there and I'd have done maybe MS in economic tricks or whatever, right? Actually wanted to be in marketing. I actually wanted to join Hindustan Unilever, which never got to join. And I said, if Hindustan Unilever doesn't have, some people told me, yeah, Hindustan Unilever is very tough, but they take people from Asian Paints. They see them, and you should. So I said, look, Asian Paints try karta hu. But it was basically marketing. I wanted to join FMCG. That was my goal.
Did you feel like euphoric when you got into IIM? Did you know that it was like a big deal to get into IIM Ahmedabad at that time, or did the realization happen later?
No, it was a big deal. You knew that it was kind of a big thing. And at the time, it was very strange. I don't know how you got to know. It was a written exam then. So to prepare for that, I mean, Goa didn't have a center. So you had to go to Bombay. I'm not sure, Bangalore or Cochin. I had an aunt in Cochin. So I went and stayed with her. She had a big house and all that. And that's where I gave the exam. All XLRI, everything was in Go. And then when the result was announced on a certain day, and you had to call up, you had to call up the institute, and they would tell you, ki yes or no. I remember calling them up once, then again call them up after 30 minutes. It was very expensive then to call up, because it was an outstation call. Then in the night, my father called again. And that's when we told everyone, ki, yeah, it's true. I still remember that. Yeah.
So you land up at IIM Ahmedabad, and how were the 2 years there? And again, did you feel when you were at IIM Ahmedabad that you were amongst very smart people, or that you were learning a lot? Was it a big difference between where you were in Goa to you didn't work in the interim, did you?
No, I didn't. I took a year off, to be honest. So 95 to 96, I had a job. It's not a well-paying job in Goa. So my father said, this is ridiculous. You can't take it. In hindsight, he's probably right. It allowed me to prepare better. It was a sales job, and he said, "Look, you can't do this. It was credit card sales. It was not such a bad job, but anyway." So the 2 years in IIM was very tough. There's this Wizard of Oz movie where they say, "Dorothy, not in Kansas anymore."
I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
It was very tough. I really struggled in the first 6 months. I got there's some number of Fs you can get. I got one F. And I remember a senior, I think the academic secretary or someone, that got this letter of people who had. So he came and reached out to me and said, "What's happening?" Like, I was in probability. I don't think I've used anything of that ever after that. And I didn't understand the point of taking that super mathematical course. I got an F there, and they had, I think, one D. And they said, "Look, you are in tricky territory. Do you have any academic issues?" I said, "No, not really." But I remember there was a very unnerving, traumatic time, and but fortunately, it looks like graduated. So I'm happy.
But did you have fun on campus, or were you constantly under the pump?
Look, I had fun. Extremely interesting people, extremely bright people, and coming from a non-engineering, so no hostel, kind of being at home all this while, it was a very different experience. There was no ragging, but there was a lot of friendly kind of leg pulling and of a very high order, and it could be brutal at times. I think a few things. One, came and met a lot of people from different parts of India. Like, for example, there were surnames like Sabu and all that. I knew all the South Indian names, but I didn't even know there were surnames like this. And to meet up with all of those people, it was very interesting. Secondly, I would say like extremely bright people. Like you had JE2 in our batch, and there were like top 100 rankers, quite a few top 100 rankers. Just to interact with them, over time you lose that awe. Initially, they're very impressive, especially in math courses, and later on there are areas where you see them also slip up. But yeah, it was a very, very interesting 2 years. But yes, I had fun, but in the first 6 months were a little hard. Yeah.
So did you then finally get your FMCG break ever in
No.
an internship or
No,
a job?
no, they all rejected me. I couldn't even make Asian Paints. I was like in tears actually. In fact, one of the PlaceCom guy went and talked to Asian Paints saying like, really, is this dream job and all that? They said no. I mean, he's not good enough. Finally, Times of India, day 3. So it's day 0 was all the McKinsey. They were paying 6 lakhs. I was like, 96 to 98. So 98, they were paying 6 lakhs. Then day 1 was all your Unilevers of the world. Day 2 was your Asian Paints and a few others. And IT guys were on day 2. And day 3 was really the last day, actually, to be honest. It was day 4, but it was like the public sector folks, like, and this thing. So day 3, I got Times of India, and even Indian experts had come, kind of, they were keen on me. So I got a sense that, hey, and the agencies were very keen. They got a sense that, hey, these are the people who seem to like me. Yeah, mera market fit yahan hai. Like, Marico was also there. I put my dream on Marico, but they rejected me. So I clearly, all the FMCG guys rejected me. Yeah.
And were you thrilled to get into Times of India, or was it a relief?
It was a relief. I was grateful I had a job, and they were paying 2.4 lakhs, which was decent. 2.4 lakhs in 98. It was in Bombay. I was excited by that. And I felt like, TK, it was, my parents were broadly happy, Times of India. They didn't know, what is the hierarchy and all that. And they were not that distinct. They said, TK, naukri mil gaya hai. 2.4 lakhs is good ROI on whatever we have put in, 75 or 80,000 rupees, or I think 1.2 lakhs or something. It was good ROI. They said, fine. So it was relief.
You've been looking at the EdTech industry for so many years, and I think Sir alluded to the fact that fees have gone up 5x, and obviously salaries have only gone up marginally, and hence the return that people get on education is not that high. In fact, in many ways, we are becoming like the US, where people have a lot of education debt, and obviously the economy is growing, but not growing fast enough to kind of support jobs for all those guys. In that context, what do you think is the role of postgraduate education or MBA, and how does it all make sense anymore, or does it make sense at all? Do you think there is a fundamental shift that needs to happen, or has it already happened?
The postgrad MBA has relevance, for sure has relevance. Keep in mind that one of the fundamental challenges, I think GP kind of alluded to that, is that it's sort of like the inverter business. So what happens is, I think the Indian undergrad, I mean, other than a few colleges, is fundamentally a weak product. And what it does is it makes it very unclear on two fronts. One, A, does this candidate really know something? And B, even if the candidate knows, it's hard to signal that because of the nature of education, etc. So I think MBA allows A, if the education has been subpar, for you to correct it and catch up. B, allows you to signal. So on both fronts, I think the IIM brand is formidable. And I think it makes sense in a certain construct where you have a weak undergrad or an average undergrad, which is not a strong signal, and you bolt on the MBA immediately after your maybe max 1 year you work. Bolt on the MBA from a decent enough, and IIM is ideal, and one of the better IIMs is ideal. But you get what you, but whatever you get, you take and bolt it on, and that allows you to kind of add on a better signal to your resume.
Going to the Bennett University incorporation, I mean, you were part of that as well, which is I would imagine a purely offline venture back then.
Offline.
Right? So I'm sure you've spent a lot of time thinking about this problem even back then. So can you tell us about that experience of founding Bennett University? And
This Times of India decided to kind of expand into education, leverage its brand, and we looked at various projects, and one of them was to get into the university space. We decided to apply for a state private university license. 3 different licenses possible. The state private university gave you a lot of flexibility, and we said we'll look at UP because that was the fastest, close proximity to Delhi, etc. And that led me to also move from Bombay to Noida, and since I've been there since then. It was a very interesting stint. Got to interact with government, got to interact with regulators, got to interact with academic practitioners. But yeah, after 2.5, 3 years, we decided it was not for me. And end of the day, whatever you say, it is fundamentally a business. And at the heart of it, you have to acquire students at a cheap enough price and recover money from them through the fees and help them get jobs. However you dress it up finally comes down to this. ISB is also doing this. Bennett is also doing this. Ashoka is also doing this. But yeah, it was an interesting stint. Taught me a lot about the education space. All of it I find useful for in my present role, where I invest in EdTech and other companies.
Sajith, now, I mean, we'll move to media as well, but I want to still go slightly deeper into education since you've seen it from such close quarters. When do you think EdTech becomes profitable, and or when does it start doing its job really well?
I think the problem is with the way EdTech has been approached. Fundamentally, EdTech is an improvement on education where you're leveraging tech for delivering education. So what you're doing is making education available for people who couldn't afford it earlier by making it cheaper or making it more accessible. Fundamentally, EdTech works as a kind of a catalyst on education. The fundamental product is education, but you're delivering it through tech, or you're enabling people to consume it through tech and improving access, reducing cost, all of that. The challenge has been that you've tried to merge a fundamentally weak economic model of acquiring customers at any price when fundamentally the unit economics is the issue, right? So I would say the issue would be if you can fundamentally sort out the unit economics. That if I have to acquire the customer for this, and if I have to sell this product to the customer, does it make sense? Should I overinvest in growth? And that's fundamentally the thing. See, in India, I think one of the big learnings has been that the best brands in India, HDFC Bank, Airtel, etc., they grow with the customer. They do not grow ahead of the purchasing power of the customer. The issue has been that some VCs, I mean, I won't absolve the VC industry of this. VC industry is to blame. Some founders have over-invested, over-purchased. But you can't do that because there isn't enough sufficient purchasing power in the Indian economy. And so what I would say is fundamentally there's nothing wrong with EdTech. EdTech is an improvement on ed. By you're trying to use tech to make it accessible and better and cheaper. Fantastic. But there is an unit economics, there's an economic model. You can't you have to work according to the constraints of that model. It's like gravity. You have to work according to the gravitational pull. Two, you can't do stupid things like buying growth when fundamentally the product is kind of the unit economics are weak. So this is what happened with EdTech.
And now in this space, EdTech and allied, job tech, stuff around human capital in general. What are the areas that excite you at this point of time?
Yeah. Within EdTech, Blume and I've when an academy we'd already invested in. Karthik led the investment, but after I joined, we did Leverage Edu, which sends students abroad. We did Class Plus, which has grown 5x in the last 1.5 years. They are increasingly TestPrep now, but also a SaaS model. We've done Virohan, we've done YOLO. All of them have done well, and all of them are.
What is the definition? Is it they getting higher funding rounds, or is it that when you say well, it is because they've moved towards profitability?
Yeah.
Or
The default alive, which means even if they stop we stop funding them, they will still survive. They are what is called contribution margin to positive, which means they cover all variable costs. The unit economics, the business models are fundamentally good. They will only grow slower if you cut off all funding. They're only taking funding for growing faster because the unit economics are sound. So these are post-product market fit businesses. And one of the areas where I work with the founders and support them is on discovering the right economic model. I think that's where we've added value. You asked about spaces. I'll be honest. A lot of this we leave to the founders because it's founders who know what the right space is. That's it. I would say two big spaces in EdTech are as follows. One is jobs. Anything which gets you jobs. Upskilling is part of it. Two is test prep. What we call phase change. Get into a better this thing, etc. These are the two big ones. Third would be extracurriculars or hobby classes, extra, which is a very small category. There'll be some subcategories which emerge, but these are the two big ones, Ankit.
And you spoke about product market or post product market fit. So, is there like a revenue number that you think is, which say, or a number of customers or a growth number that tells you that this is now approaching product market fit within the education space?
Yeah. So product market fit has to. It's a complex topic. So and I won't bore the audience because so I would say product market fit growth is one part, but equally important is retention. Are you able to acquire the customers? Are those customers churning out? Or are they repeating? Are they coming back? Is there predictability in how you are able to acquire customers? So the way you are acquiring the customers, are you able to acquire predictably the customers at a reasonable price, sound unit economics, and can you keep doing that consistently? So there's a more detailed definition, but for this audience I think this is a good definition.
And is there like, just for simplicity's sake, is there like a threshold के महीने में इतना revenue होना चाहिए, साल में इतना revenue होना चाहिए?
Yeah, so I think as with any metric, you can't only look at one part of the metric. You need to have a check metric. So you need to have a quantity metric with a quality metric, right? So you can't only look at number of page visits. You also have to look at the time spent. So similarly, I would say the quantity metric could be revenue. The quality metric has to be unit economics or CM2. Okay, or it can be CM2 positive, growing at certain percentage. Either of these two, right? So basically, is it growing? Let's say at least 1 crore a month would be good. Is it growing? Okay, and if it is growing, it's a quality. Is it growing? Unit economics. Is it quality growth, or are you just buying growth? Are you buying for 1 rupee and spending 120? Or is it the other way around? Yeah.
Sajith, going back to your journey, you spent 2 decades in media.
Yeah.
And I think you, by the way, whoever hates Arnab Goswami or whoever loves Arnab Goswami, one of the guys who launched Times Now is sitting right, on the left of me.
Employee number 2. Yeah.
And I think you did a variety of media and connected ventures when you were at Bennett and the Times of India group. So tell us about that time. You've literally seen India's growth over those 2 decades, like governments changed. And I think in the media industry, obviously, that's so visible, like the difference that happens across the board. So tell us about that. I feel like that would have been a super exciting time, getting that ringside view around the transformation of a nation.
Yeah, joined 98. I started working and I joined Times Music, which launching Times Music then. And that's why they kind of told me you to join very fast, like, before, not July, you have to join May end. Can you join? And I joined. It was a very exciting stint. We're selling cassettes. I don't know if anyone knows what cassettes are. Essentially,
Was Planet M part of Times Music?
yeah, it was not part, it was a different division. But and Planet M was a very glamorous music store, which a few years later just went out of business because nobody was buying music cassettes or CDs. But yeah, it was a very exciting thing. I saw the music industry. Then 3 years later, I moved to the newspaper side. Then Times Now happened. Then the university business happened. I would say one interesting learning was I got to work with the owner of the Times of India, Samir Jain, who's a genius. And the Times of India is an incredibly profitable newspaper, and fundamentally they don't see themselves as a newspaper company. They see themselves as an advertising company. The way they see it is acquire customers cheaply through a decent enough product, sell them to advertisers. Quality of that, the way they think, the strategy, very high order to interact with Samir Jain, to kind of be part of the discussion. So that was very transformative as well. That was actually my real B school, I would say. So and I saw India change. It was an incredible change. I remember 98 I joined the Times, and we had this induction, and we went to the production plant. And at the time mobiles were very expensive, right? And so even to get a call, you were charged
18 rupees or 20 rupees in
16 rupees a minute. It was crazy, right? And I remember the person talking, oh my god, it's so expensive, the production hit is 16 rupees a minute, that,
for an incoming call.
So it's a very different era, and every respect I've seen a lot of change, and I would say one of the most interesting. I think I've seen the youth, and I would say there's a lot more confidence. In our case, the hierarchy was very clear, right? The bosses and this, and we're very kind of subjugated and. But today, I think the younger folks are very confident, and they're able to kind of be very assertive. I find that impressive as well. So lots of small changes, lots of big changes, but some of these stand out.
So, which was your most memorable day at the Times Group in 2 decades?
Certainly, the university launch was a great occasion, and it's more recent. And I would say one memorable day was very early on when we had this one hit product in Times Music. I still remember when you have a hit product, etc. Right?
Like it was a hit album, or
yeah, it was called Gayatri, and it was a devotional category. Strangely, as Gayatri mantra, and I still remember we put it out in the market, and we probably made about 10,000. It was a standard thing, 10,000 and some 300 or 500 CDs. And that evening, we started getting repeat orders, and so very, very bizarre. And you would say someone would call, and they would call on the phone and say, Sajith Pai, 50 बेच देना. The Ahmedabad guy, 50 बेच देना. Then suddenly 3 hours later he called ki, भाई 50 निकला नहीं ना, 100 और डाल दो. Then and then when it happened, you realize it's a monster hit, and then you call and that evening was incredible. We knew we had a big hit on our hands, and it was crazy. So it was electrifying, those 1-2 days. So there were moments like this, and I'm sure I'm not remembering a lot, but I still remember Gayatri sales, and yeah.
And the news channel, right? Setting up something like Times Now. And I remember that in about 18 odd months since it was launched, I think it was very clear that there was a new kid on the block. And I mean, you could hear it from, and I'm talking about 2007, 8, 9 types, when news channels were still very popular. People used to watch it. At least the young people used to watch it. I think now we've moved to YouTube videos. When did you know that this was a big hit on your hands, or was there a conscious brand building around it which was different?
Yeah. I'll tell you some facts which I don't think discussed or known. So maybe, yeah. Arnab came from NDTV, and he was a very liberal, like, like all that you say, Khan Market Gang, Perch. He was like that. I think deep down he still is like that. His son's name is Che. Like, I don't know the exact full name, but like the dark, the Bengalis have that, right? The dark, the bhalo, not bhalo nam and the dark nam. The dark nam is Che. What happened is the channel took a long time to come. There were some regulatory permissions, etc., and I think some mischief happened. They delayed it one pretext or the other, so he was get very antsy. There was a lot of people hired. This it took a year and 3 months for the channel to come. Then it was a very competitive space by then, because English, these guys had already launched. CNN, IBN had launched. Others had also put in more money, and he was not able to get. Many journalists came and left. So for a long time, he was not succeeding. In 2005, we had got certain books from the industry. Okay, and one of the book from US, etc. We had purchased books. So one of the books was a book called Crazy Like a Fox. I still remember. Arnab took the book, never gave back the copy to me. And the book was about how Fox carved out a space in the US by catering to one segment who had been ignored, which is the conservative right, and they went full right and they won that audience. Okay, what happened is that similar situation existed in India. Okay, and it had been ignored by all of the like left-leaning channels. So what happened is, as Arnab started covering anything, and we had a military guy who would give good coverage. Arnab would come from, and he was center right, and his show started getting a lot of audience. So they looked at the data, they found out that that was working on. So he started moving more and more in that direction. And then there were a few things like that Prince one, etc., which gave a lot of response. So over time, it was just data. The data said every time I do this kind of programming, there's an audience. And Arnab was not very, how do you put it? He did not have anything that, I will be this, I will not change myself. He said, this is what the market is saying, I'll look at this. And there is this term called audience capture. For example, today I'll be very honest. I'm audience captured by tech. If I write anything on poetry, which is a big area of interest, nobody will even like it, right? Because all my audience are tech bros and tech sisters, like, they want me to write on product market fit. Hey, what's happening with whatever, Silicon Valley, etc. So Arnab has been audience captured by that audience, and now he's completely catering to that. To be honest with you, it's a transition that just happened automatically. He's just gone more and more and more. So this is the secret that has been shared in I don't know if it's very germane to your audience, but there it is. Yeah.
When you were working as a in the administration of that, when did you realize that, okay, this is the right positioning, branding, now we just need to continue to...
Yeah, I had moved to the print side by then. I had moved to this division called Brand Capital, which finally led me to joining Blume. So I'd moved on to that division. So I heard about it from the outside. And it was initially a gradual transformation. And he also took a lot of cues from, he went and spoke to the owners, etc., that this is positioning. So they also knew what was happening. And then one day, just doubled down and more. So we knew it from the outside that this was happening. It was discussed. Yeah.
I mean, everybody knew that newspaper was going to die eventually. Yeah. But at least a non-English part of newspapers in India still probably exists and has its own really loyal audience. What do you think of the... do you still think that that's a product that has space in today's world, or is it inevitable?
Since early 2000s, because I used to work with Samir Jain, they've been talking about the sunset of print. And his favorite term was prolonging the sunset of print. Do everything you can. And what happens is when an industry, and the way he thinks is very different. He doesn't think revenue, he thinks profits. He thinks market share of profits. So it's a bit like tobacco and a lot of these businesses, they're declining. But the people who want it are willing to pay a price for it. And there's no competition coming in because it's a declining thing. Advertising, you don't have to do anything because, okay. So typically you're more profitable and you're trying to squeeze as much as possible. So I saw how he thinks about the business, and they would think in a very, very strategic way about the business. In fact, he was not interested in languages. He created a category called Bedam. Like, this is the way he said: broadsheet, English, daily, urban, morning. This is the most profitable category. I will dominate here because the advertiser pays the highest premium for this category. Language is the opposite of this, effectively, other than the morning, right? It's not like some of them are tabloid, they're rural, they're non-English. And he said, English ke liye people pay and I will do everything. So, yes, Times of India did get into languages. And when the time was right, they got into languages. But they would look at it and say, hey, same audience, same 100,000 copies, if a language paper sells, they're getting 1/10 the advertising that English gets. Why should I focus on that category? So there was a lot of strategic thinking around that, and I think they've been reasonably successful. They're still they're still profitable. I think the revenues have come down. Maybe at my era when I left, it was 4,000 crores. Maybe now it's 2,500 crores. Maybe, but they're still profitable. Yeah.
Now you seem to be in a space which is full of, I mean, I'm sure you meet your per hour ambitious people meeting hit rate must be so high, right? And I'm sure that would have had an effect on you as well. Do you feel you become like cocky and arrogant like a lot of founders?
No, I don't think so. I'd be very scared if I become like that. That's one thing I'm paranoid about. Yeah, I just can't afford to be like that. Yeah, so not at all.
So yeah, I mean, you eventually ended up in the VC world. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking of the guy who was in Goa doing economics from
Yeah.
a not so great college with not very ambitious people, then goes to IIM Ahmedabad, probably struggles there for the first few months, probably gets not the best job from campus. You stick around for 2 decades, which is quite admirable in itself. Learned, obviously, like you said, from one of the best in the country. So tell us about how did you enter the VC world? I mean, I've briefly, I mean, I've read your 10,000 word essay. And just for the benefit of the audience and everybody who's watching, was it like a natural transition into the VC world, or was it something that you had no idea about? Because right now when I look at your feed, I think you are probably like a VC historian now.
Yeah.
You know exactly what happened 40 years back in the US and
Yeah.
the journey across the world of VC companies. So if you can just shed some light about your career transition here and
Yeah.
how scared you were, or was it natural?
No, it was not natural. I was very lucky to get the job, and I don't think other than Blume, anyone would have hired me in venture. The truth is that what happens in any org is, after a certain point, either you become a CEO or you're a CXO, very clearly to CXO next year. Else, like you get squeezed out, and I think that process was on. It was not like I was doing brilliantly in the last year or so. Fortunately, luckily, Karthik Reddy, who had founded Blume, and we had worked together in Times in a division called Brand Capital, where I'd moved after the TV one. So he reached out one day, and what happened is I would keep looking for jobs 2011, 12, 13. And a lot of people would say, you worked 14 years in media. Like, it'd be tough for you to kind of, even though with your degree, etc. So I said, look, I'm trapped. Like, it's not very easy for me to kind of get like a good job now. Like, and I might get something, but is it really what I want? And Times is okay. There was good enough this thing. So I really said my degrees of freedom are limited. Like my friends who joined Unilever or McKinsey are getting like terrific jobs. They're able to move on. So I said, look, I have to get out of this trap. And I said, I'd read some stuff by then. I wanted to build a personal brand. So I would write. And that's the journey. I kept writing a little bit. So at least, I have a website. I would keep updating that website with new articles. So that when I go for an interview or something, they'll look at it and say, okay. Yeah.
So guys, I mean, if you feel that right now you have to work really hard to build your resume and prepare for interviews, that happens even at 40 as well.
Yeah, I would say my writing is far more important than my IIM degree. I'll put it this way. If tomorrow IIM comes and says, remove this degree, there was some issue, you remove it, don't even show this. And you can't come to any institute, this thing, etc. And the choice was, there's your website, that's going to get deleted and you're not going to be shown that. I would say, forget my IIMA degree. I don't need it. I don't even need a degree. My writing is my degree, right? So I would say 4 to 5, 6 pieces that I've written, they are seminal, influential pieces. I've seen founders come and show it to me on their phone. They've saved that, okay? They have written to me saying, they've reached out to Blume because of you. To me, that's far more important. That's my resume. Okay, that's my degree. Okay, so 2018, one day Karthik Reddy reached out and said, "Look, just be curious. Have you ever thought about venture?" And there's this movie called Jerry Maguire. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a little old now. So there's a famous line in which this woman says, and he's trying to woo her to join the company, saying, and he talks long and hey, go away, etc. And then she says, "You had me at hello," like So it's a great line, and I think it's sort of. I told Karthik later, "You just had me at. Have you ever thought, But it took a long time to join because he himself was not sure, am I the right person? He was talking to a few other people. 8-9 months of conversations. I met everyone in Bloom. But over time, I felt confident that this was the one. And I think from his side, he felt like I was a student of the industry. I would bring him facts and I would talk about it, and he would say like, "You're not even in the industry. Seem to know more about it." Used to say. And so I was like an anthropologist, historian of the industry from outside. So some of that helped. But really, other than Bloom, no one would have looked at me. I was 43. I had 20 years in analog company, not a digital company. Not uh, not worked on. I'm not from Times Internet, from the print side. I'd not started up before. I'd never been an investor. In fact, I thought one day would come back and say, "Ki Sajith, we've thought about it. It's very difficult to convince other people." But finally, it happened. I joined, and I think my life changed. Um, so one thing I would say is, a lot of people try to, your life is never like this. Your life is a lot of squiggly lines, go up, go down. It's like snakes and ladders. But I see this with a lot of successful people. They go back and they just correct it. And all of those imperfections are glossed over. I'm like a Taleb fan. And one thing I said is like I try and read every book of Taleb's and Nassim Taleb. Yeah. Anti-Fragile, Black Swan, etc. So one thing I said is I'll never smoothen out any imperfection. Jo hai main bolunga. I could have created this thing that, oh yeah, it happened naturally and all. Nothing like that. I don't think I'd have got into any other VC fund. Karthik took the chance. He took the risk. But Bloom is that kind of a fund, right? And that's paid off for them, I presume. And it's worked for me. So that's the story. Yeah.
Super interesting. Now, for the benefit of everyone, and because I know that most people still don't understand it, what does a VC do? How would you explain it to people who are probably trying to understand about it for the first time?
Yeah. Very simply, VCs raise money from people called LPs, limited partners, who could be very big financial institutions like pension funds, insurance companies, universities, or very wealthy family offices like Bill Gates, Narayan Murthy, etc. They create a product. It's like a mutual fund. It's a closed-ended mutual fund. It's not open to subscription. It invests in, instead of public companies, invest in private companies. And it gives money to startups. There are different VCs who invest in different stages. So we invest in seed to pre-series A stage, sort of like, there are series A investors, series B investors, etc. And we typically invest in tech-focused companies. Now, a lot of people look at it and say, "Oh, very glamorous. You give money to founders, etc." And I suppose, and in fact, there's an article coming. It was inspired to kind of write it. It's on my website. It's actually the leading article on my website. And it's about career advice to people who want to get into venture. So some of you can check it out. In that, I argue that this notion of seeing the VC as you investing in founders, where you buy a stake, is wrong. The best in fact, I say that there are two tiers in VC. There's a bottom tier and a top tier, or a lower tier and upper tier. The lower tier founder has no choice. Whatever money you give, is grateful to accept. He or she is grateful to accept. In the upper tier, that VC is chasing founders, and the founder decides who I want. And what I do is I aspire to only be in the upper tier. I want to work with the best founders. I get excited. I get goosebumps when I work with great founders. To work with those founders, I need to convince them that for your project, for your initiative, for your company, take my money. Don't take that other VC's money. Take my money, take my expertise, take my time, take Bloom's support time, and pay with equity, which will hopefully go up in value. That's what I do. My job is to reach out, connect, engage, persuade, great founders who have choice to take my money and I sell the Blume brand of capital. Like somebody else is selling a Nexus brand of capital, a Sequoia brand of, or Peak 15 brand of capital, and so on. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to open the floor up for questions that you guys would have, and I'll butt in whenever I feel there is something relevant to ask.
How do you deal with, I know when funding winter arrives, the entire industry normalizes because it's everywhere, but still if you have stretched your duration from your competitors, then there's some pressure starts pumping upon you that you need to find. So do you start scraping through the deals, through the material, to find that one deal so that everyone calms down and even your ball keeps rolling? Or you just give a straight no, that no, now is not the time, let me sit on cash and see when the time's right? Number two, of course, you have an archetype for founders, for businesses, but if there are some contrarian points that are coming up to you, but you know it in your gut and probably somewhere on paper as well, that this company is gonna go do well, but I'll have to fight hard to my own board to invest into this. Does that happen very often, or have you, so any insights on that?
So the thing is, you can always do an investment. There are many good enough companies. So you try not to do good enough. You try to do the great, because the thing is as follows: we get more than 10,000 inbounds a year. There are 5 partners. Each of us does 2 to 3 investments, on average about 10 to 12, maybe. Okay, that's all we need to do. We need to do like 100 of 10,000 is 1%. We need to do 0.01%. I mean, we only want to do the great ones. That doesn't mean every investment succeeds. It doesn't. So I would say we don't have to force ourselves. There are enough good ones. There are, I would say, at least 100 to fundable ones. And we only do about 10, 12 of them. So I don't think that what you said happens, that we are forced to do anything. We don't have to. Be enough good ones. And beyond a point, we don't care funding winter and this thing. Fundamentally, we believe that if it's a great founder, if the problem is really intense, if there's a lot of customer pain, then we're happy to fund it, because eventually the funding winter will get solved. And all great companies have come during funding winters. Microsoft in 74, like go and check it out. Okay, the second question is contrarian. Once in a while, there are things where your investment committee may disagree with you, and you try and push through. I would say that wherever I've pushed through, when my investment committee has disagreed, it hasn't worked out well. So while I like to think I'm this very cool investor, actually I think, see, there should not be too much. What happens is, if you try and accommodate everyone's views, sometimes, it's like they say, right? The camel is a horse designed by a committee, right? That's it. I think the Blume Investment Committee and my partners, etc., I think it's really well balanced, and I would say, like, it's actually collectively, the collective mind is, and I'm not ashamed to say that they've opened up my eyes to certain things. I kind of see that. So I'm not ashamed to say that I think the committee part has, the investment committee and the collective think tank that the IC is, has worked out well for us. I would say today I'm a little more hesitant to push, naturally, because 2 I've took have not worked out. So I'm a little more hesitant to kind of push through. But sometimes it works both ways. One day I'll push something which they'll disagree with, and might turn out to be a big one. Who knows? But equally, I mean, I might miss out on something because I listen too much to them. So both risks are there. Errors of commission, errors of omission are there. That's something that we have to live with. There's no easy one answer to this. Yeah.
Hello, sir. It has been great learning experience listening to you. Since you've seen, successful and not so successful people in both the worlds, my question is, MBA colleges serve, a mentor actually told me this, MBA colleges serve more as a placement agency more than, an educational institution. So, I mean, it's great for people who are looking for placements after an MBA, but do you think it is also, helpful for people who are trying to start something of their own?
Yes and no. I would say not really. To be honest, if I have to say, I don't think MBAs and startups necessarily go well together today. Okay, that is not to say that an MBA is at a disadvantage. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying there's no overwhelming advantage to having an MBA. It's a bit like what GP said about having 3 years of work ex. It's good, but there's no real big advantage beyond that, because so I would say your question, if you're looking to start up, time is of the essence. There is a reason why is the right time to start something. Okay, and doing an MBA 2 years, you're not going to learn anything more. And a lot of the MBA teaching is not specifically the way startups work. It's a very it I mean, it's good, it's very good, the principles etc are there, but I think startups work very differently. And YC, for example, has a lot of very interesting, like a startup MBA program, like how to and I think those would be far more important.
So, sir, my question is, uh, last 10 years, as you and Ankit were also discussing, VCs have seen a very hot environment, and currently there is a slowdown in the startup space. So, should we conclude that there have been learnings that VCs as well as the startups have had in the last 10 years in India? And do you have some advices which you would like to give to this generation entrepreneurs who are like trying to build products in the next 5-10 years, probably who are in their early 20s, currently in colleges, and have just entered working class?
Yeah, lots of thanks for the question. Good question. Lots of learnings on both sides. And 2020 and 2021 were unreal years. Unreal, right? So 23 is humbling for everyone, VCs as well as founders. And my only advice is, I think we need balance. And I think the fundamental principles of building shouldn't change, even if you have access to a lot of money. There is a way to build sanely, and we should respect that. When you look at India, I think there's some fundamental challenges in India. It is, whatever you might say, it's not a rich country. The average per capita income is $2,500. It is growing at a certain pace. It is not China. It will grow. And will it hit $4,000? It will hit $4,000. But the real paying capacity today is with the top 10% of India, which we call India 1. So if you're building for India 1, it's fine, but it's a crowded space. If you're building for India 2, well, less crowded, but the capacity is not there. But there are interesting business models which are emerging, so microtransactions and all of that. So I would say, I think the next 5 years, we're going to see a lot more solid businesses come out and shine. This will have better unit economics. They will not be trying to acquire customers crazily. They will be not over investing. They'll be capital efficient. And at Blume, we love these businesses. So in fact, for example, we had Exotel. I mentioned about Exotel. There is 1.25 crores, and they built a profitable business. They 11 crores valuation, and the next was, they took a small this thing at what 200 crores, and then it was another 1,000 crore plus. So businesses like that, which don't need a lot of capital, which are building sanely, strong unit economics, that's the path. I advise founders, figure out the pain deeply. Figure out what the customer pain is. If the customer pain is not deep, like Kunal Shah talks about Delta 4, your product has to be like Delta 4, which means far superior, like 10x superior to the other product for the customer to kind of come to you. Let us create products which are so strong, and let's focus on significant pain. Okay? Do not worry so much about TAM. Great founders will figure out TAM, and that's been my big learning. That wherever I focused on TAM, I have made bad investment calls. So do not worry about TAM. Instead, focus on the pain, the depth of pain, and how strong the product is. The business will grow, and the entrepreneur will figure it out.
Hi, good evening, sir. My name is Tushar. Sir, my question revolves around your working profile. So, like, you must be surrounded around like many earliest startups. So, I mean, those startups generally do not have very financial statements, like very concrete financial statements or financial data. So one of the like methods to evaluate them is Burkus model. Any other like valuation?
What model?
Burkus model.
Okay.
Okay. So any other like valuation methods you use on daily basis?
Yeah, you'll be surprised with the valuation methods we use. So I've written about this in an article called Exhaust Fumes.
Okay.
Exhaust Fumes actually comes from a quote by this very well-known VC called Fred Wilson, who says valuation in venture is an exhaust fume of the capital that the founder needs and the stake that a VC needs. So a lot of people will put all these Burkus model and all that, and I'll tell you very simply how it happens. I look at you and say, okay, you are in this space. Okay, let's say to reach the next stage, you need how much capital? We'll agree on a certain sum of capital. And I know that the next stage, that's enough for a funding to happen. Now I need a certain stake, anywhere from 15 to 20%. So if you need $2 million, I need 20%. The valuation is $10 million. That's how valuation is done in venture land. It's as simple as that. So, but there's a lot of art and science to this. Like you got to align many things, etc. So venture is like chess. You can learn the rules in an afternoon. It takes a lifetime to master. So what I told you is so simple. You'll say the word is simple. None of us use Burkus. I've not heard the word Burkus. In fact, when I first heard this, I had to Google it. Ki kya hai? We have not used anything. All we use is what is the capital required to get it to the next level of funding. Typically 18 months ka money chahiye and a certain amount is required to get them to. So you may be selling 100 units. At 1,000 units, Series A guy will come. Okay. To 100 units to 1,000 units, you reach in 18 months. Say you need $2 million. We look at number of people needed, all that. Now we look and say we need 20% stake, boss. Because आगे dilute होके 9% बचेगा IPO चला जाएंगे. Okay. You should read the article Exhaust Fumes. Okay. There is no Burkus. Please forget that.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome. I think it has been a great session, Sajith. Super reflective, insightful. I think we've learned a lot, all of us collectively. Some great questions as well. Very interesting that you guys are thinking so much. But thank you so much for making the trip from Noida, Uttar Pradesh.
It was a pleasure.
To Delhi.
Pleasure. Not too far. Thank you. Thank you.